Fargo, which is a show we both greatly enjoyed. Yeah. Fargo is coming back with season 2, but it's going to be very different. We know it's set in the 1970s. It's going to involve Lou. That character as a younger man.
Yeah, it was basically the story, like, he kept referring back to sort of this incident, this pivotal moment in his early career that was very violent, and what was happening during the story of Fargo as we were watching it was reminiscent of that period. And I always, like, I think several of us who were fans of the show initially were like, this should be the sequel. Yeah. Like, we should explore this flashback in a flashback series. They haven't cast young Lou yet.
No.
I'm very curious about who they're going to get to do that.
Yeah. And
maybe they'll performance capture him. They're not going to do that.
They use old footage of Carradine from the 70s.
Yeah. That'd be amazing.
But we do know some casting. Jeffrey Donovan. I did have that moment of just thinking about Jeffrey Donovan just because, he starred in Burn Notice for years, and he kind of been off the radar since then, like a year and a half ago, and it just was like, hey, that's a guy that other TV shows would want to pluck up.
And there he is.
And here he is.
Plucked.
He's been plucked. But actually, I'm going to hold on the other possible casting for a second that happened with Donovan and say that a week later, we learned that Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons are starring in it.
Crazy Todd, you guys.
Crazy Todd.
And
he's still Landry to me, though.
No, he's still, to me, he was so Landry. Good. He was almost too good as Todd, so much so that it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for me to divorce myself from that character.
Right.
Hopefully he's not a total sociopath in this. I don't think he will be.
Don't think so.
Because Fargo, I think one of the things that I liked about the first season is that they were very smart about casting both with and against type.
Yeah.
Because when you first were introduced to Martin Freeman, you almost immediately had sympathy for him because he's Martin Freeman and you like him and you thought he was playing this very familiar character, this very likable character. And so when he turned, it was so brilliant, because you had to wrestle with your own feelings and your own kind of moral ambiguity because of Lester.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that was great. And once again, example 20,000, I'll mention in passing that, was it Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon are going to be doing a limited series together.
Yeah.
So Kirsten Dunst, again, is this thing now where it's like, it's kind of the cool thing almost. For movie stars to do these limited run TV shows.
Well, it's funny because when I interviewed Billy Bob Thornton for Fargo, one of the things that he said was, when he was coming up initially in movies, that there were these mid-range movies where you could do a film that was a few $1 million, so it was a no-budget film, but that would have a really rich character-driven story. And he's like, you can't do that in movies anymore. That kind of movie doesn't exist. That mid-range movie doesn't exist. It's on TV now.
Yeah.
And I think that it's these limited series, and we're seeing with True Detective and Fargo. With the distance, and this is controversial, I'll ask you about, with the distance of a few months, and I look at the Golden Globes, I think I'm slightly more looking forward to the second season of Fargo.
I definitely
than True Detective.
I actually, from the get-go, I liked Fargo more than True Detective. There was always when True Detective was airing, I loved it, but I wasn't quite there with some other people here that were just so excited about it.
Right. I was, if you'll recall.
Yeah. You and Jim loved it, and I thought it was really good, but it didn't quite grab me in the way Fargo did. Fargo, there was something about it that really interested me.
I think when I look at Fargo as a whole, I really think it's such a genius series. Those 10 episodes, just looked at in its entirety, it's funny, it's very dark, it's smart, it's just brilliantly constructed, and it has a lot to say. You know, I really do love that series. I cannot wait to see what they do next. A lot of people don't like prequels. I guess we could call it a prequel.
Yeah, but I think one thing we should mention is that Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons were announced as playing the leads in this, but he's not playing Lou.
Right.
So Lou is in it, and they have yet to cast Lou, and that doesn't mean Lou's not another lead, but I think that they know better than to be like, this is 100% trying to be like Fargo, the prequel to the TV show. So it's all about Lou and tons of him and his little girl because she's gonna grow up. So I think Lou will be part of this other story. They've been very secretive about what the story is. Like all we know is Kirsten Dunst plays a beautician who wants more than this provincial life, and Jesse Plemons is her husband who's supportive. but doesn't quite get his wife.
So it's Beauty and the Beast with machine guns.
Yes,
is what we're saying.
But of course, something's going to go horribly wrong, and there'll be blood and murder. And
there will be lots of blood and
accidentally
murder.
or purposely kill someone, or who knows?
A lot of someone's, I would assume, because there's the whole the Sioux Falls incident. Yeah. We have to get to Sioux Falls somehow.
It'll happen this season, I think, but it won't be so. Oh, everything he referenced will be the entire season.
Yeah, I don't think it will be either.
Yeah.
He's, Noah Hawley, the creator of the series, is very smart. It's funny because for me, I think fans really liked the nods to the film. I actually really preferred it when he was just doing his own thing, even more than that. And I think by the end of the series that you saw, even when you thought he was doing characters or references from the film, he really played with them, including Lester. That was a very different character by the end of it.
Yeah, I think he was having fun with those expectations.
Yeah.
Oh, this character is this version of that. And it was like, well, it is.
But it also isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing before we leave Fargo, though, is when Donovan was revealed to be in it, was the person they're trying to get also. They've not done a deal yet with him, and that is Nick Offerman, which would be way too amazing, and I please want this to happen. Just love Offerman, and just the idea of taking, he's just wrapping up, Parks finished filming last week. So for him to go from that to something so cool as Fargo, it just feels right.
Yeah.
He would keep the mustache, and it would be period specific.
And it would work.
There's a lot of reasons that this sounds like a guy who's born to be in that world.
I think so too. And they've also obviously done. Noah Hawley did a good bit with casting people that you would think of as comedic, and maybe they're not here, or maybe they are a little bit.
They are,
still.
but then they can still play with their expectations.
Yeah, Key and Peele were in the first season. I love Fargo the movie too, by the way, but I just think this is one of the more interesting adaptations that I've seen. Of a film to a TV series. I cannot wait for the second season. And I'm excited for True Detective too, but it's weird. It's I just was looking over the Golden Globe nominations. I'm slightly more excited about Fargo. Yeah. Who knew?
I second it.